Welcome, everybody,
What's going on, everybody?
to Boomzies, episode 28.
So close to 30.
So
Gonna
close
be
to
here
30.
Soon.
We're going to be old.
Will we?
At 30, isn't that when life's over? That's what I tell my wife every day. I'm like, well, sorry, babe, 30. Life's over for you. Sucks for you. I always tell her that she's a cougar. Yeah, she's older than me.
Okay.
I'm like, you're a woman in her 30s married to a man in his 20s. You're sick.
But you're like 29.
But I'm a man in my 20s, and she's a woman in her 30s. That's perverted.
Yeah.
That's robbing the cradle.
Anyways, 30 is not the end of your life.
No, it is not the end of your life, because I'm
hardly anything.
This year I will be 30, so,
Yeah.
you know, whatever.
So, anyways, if this is anybody's first time joining Boomzies, so what are we?
Yes, for you versions out there, Boomzies is, as it says down here, Mass Geek Debate. Don't
Right there.
right there. It is Mass Geek Debate, which is where we debate all the topics in the geekdom spectrum, from video games, comic books, movies, television, and music, and everything in between its grimy, greasy toes every week.
Something. So yeah, so hopefully you guys like it. We're up to over 40 right now, so
Yeah.
there's bound to be somebody that's never seen us before.
And
so
if you've never
hopefully
seen
you like
us,
it.
or if you've seen us, share the love right now. Let people experience us live. Let us propagate or inseminate, whichever mate you like.
Yeah. But anyways, on tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about. There's a lot of rumors running around right now about the next Xbox, the Xbox 720,
Yeah.
which is a terrible name. I hope they don't.
I hope, yeah, that would.
But we'll see. I'm sure.
Because when I think of 720, I think of that arcade game.
Yeah. Well, 360 was. I've grown to, Xbox 360,
Exactly.
but it's like whatever. But anyway, so we're going to talk about the rumors, what's been going on, what we kind of speculate, what will happen, and then for our main topic.
We're going to be talking about video games, Ludology versus Narratology.
Which it's basically a way to study video games based on story versus gameplay, and it's been researched for the past 10-15 years. So we're gonna kind of duke it out on that one.
Story versus gameplay, the thing that Lan and I have been talking about for a while. By the way, welcome Jerry and Ninjal. Welcome, 2 new viewers. Look at that. Thank you for joining. It's Simply T. Look at this. The whole fam's back together. I love talking to these people.
Yeah.
It's just like the whole fam gets back together every week. It's just like, hey, I know you and I know you. Except there's no awkwardness of like somebody dating somebody's sister or something.
Well, that's true.
Which is a bonus. So we're all friends.
Yeah. So
let's start into what we've been doing this week,
Yeah.
Landon. What have you been up to this week?
Let's see. The first thing I got in there, Lie to Me, I believe. Is that what we're going? I don't.
Are you
remember
gonna ask me again?
I don't remember my order.
You always do this.
I know what 2
Why?
things are on there, but I don't remember my order. Okay, it's not Lie to Me. The first thing I've been doing is I played the demo for Resident Evil Revelations on the Nintendo 3DS, which, if you guys haven't heard, this was the game that was supposed to come on a larger memory card. It was going to be $50 when it was launched.
Right.
But they've come out and it's down to $40 when it
So
releases.
did they
that's
fit
good.
it on a smaller memory card? What's
No, it's
the
on
deal?
the same card.
Or it's on the same.
They've just decided, we'll put it
Yeah,
at $40.
I think that's a wise
Makes
idea with the
sense.
market of the 3DS like it is now. Keep it at 40. I don't think adopters are ready to be throwing down $50 for a game right now.
Yeah. I mean, unless there's more than just there's more content, which I guess is cool, but I don't know. $50 is a bit high for
So
a
your
game.
impressions of the game? What did you think?
I like it. I think it works really well. Obviously, I don't have the extra circle pad, which this game will be enhanced with. So I don't have that, but I'm just obviously since it's not released yet. But it plays really well without it. The controls worked fine. It's a nice merger between what you expect out of the consoles and what you get on the handheld. It is a Resident Evil game, so it's dark, but coupled with it being on the 3DS and you throw on the 3D, it gets dark really quick, and it's a reflective surface.
Yeah.
It's like the glass over the screen.
That's why it's hard to see the 3D and the screen at the time.
So it seems like half the time I'm staring at myself. It's like a mirror, because it's dark and then
That's
it's got
the
glass.
game is meant to be deep. It's like, isn't the greatest demon your inner demon? Oh!
Yeah.
Maybe it's some deep subcontext of the Resident Evil. The next game is just going to be a black screen.
That's true. Make your own.
I like
And they'll
it.
charge $100. But anyways, it's cool. I haven't beat it. I kept dying, but it's really fun. It seems like it's going back to where it's going to be very limiting in
It
limiting
seems
your-
scarier. It
in your
seems a little more
ammo, limiting
Yeah,
your
yeah.
just the collectible stuff to, it's not going to be an easy task. And from the reviews, people that have been reviewing it as of late are giving it good reviews. Everybody's saying
I'm hearing
buy it,
really
so,
good reviews on it so far, so that's positive to see. Resident Evil going back to mixing Forge control style with a little bit of the older mentality. I
was very pleased with the controls though too, because I thought the controls worked out really well for it with just the one circle pad. So I was happy all around.
And you do only have 30 tries of the demo, which I don't know if I'd ever play it 30 times, but I find that funny. It's like, you have now had one try of your 30 tries, and it was like, I felt it was like patronizing me, like, yeah, that's it. 30 times and it's over. So I really want to go to like 30 times.
Yeah. So once you're down to like 2 and you still haven't beaten, you're like, oh my god, I gotta do this. I gotta do this.
I wonder if you could re-download.
It's like an addiction.
That'd be.
I don't know.
Looking at yourself, that's the real evil, says Deceptive Creep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So there's that. I mean, it's just free to download. So go out and try it if you want.
I think you should definitely try it.
3DSs.
I tried it
the other thing I've been doing is watching the television show Lie to Me with Tim Roth.
Yeah.
It's on Netflix, all 3 seasons, and it is phenomenal. I absolutely love this game. When I was told, or this television series, sorry.
Lie to Me, the game.
Yeah, I know. Which it's just LA Noire. Yeah, pretty much though. Yeah. But when I was told the description of it, a couple of my friends had recommended it, and I was like, it didn't seem that interesting. What it is, you follow the lead character is Cal Lightman, and he runs a deception detection agency.
That sounds really
where
cool.
they basically use science and facial expressions and body language to determine whether or not you're lying. The thing is, they don't know why you're lying. They just know that you're not telling the whole truth. And so it's really honestly an emotional roller coaster. The pilot is phenomenal. It really just takes you on this just emotional roller coaster. You're happy, you're sad, you're upset, and then it just brings it home at the end. And the nice thing with this is each episode is not like structured in the same way, where if you watch shows like maybe House, where you can kind of tell how that episode is going to be structured. This one continues to throw curveballs at me. I'm halfway through season 2 of it, and I'm still like, I have no idea where they're going with a lot of these
I like what one of the cool things they do in the show is, I love when they show an expression of somebody in the show, and then show about 4 or 5 pictures of movie stars, presidential candidates, like different famous people you've known making that same expression, and you're like, oh, I see what they're talking about. Because it really brings it back to reality that we all have these little quirks and hints that give away our feelings.
Right, and it's still subjective. Like, there's not overall, one overall rule that they have to follow through, and it's unique per each person. They have to establish a baseline of how you talk and how you tell truths and lies, and it's just such a cool ass show. I absolutely love it. So great acting. I mean, all the characters you really, really care about, especially the people that they're just dealing with on an episode basis. The people that are being tried wrongly and being accused of murder or rape or anything like that. You just really care for a lot of the characters. There's great acting throughout each episode. So. And
that was the same dude who was on the Hulk movie.
Yeah, Tim Roth. He's in. He was Mr. Orange from. The Reservoir Dogs.
He was in Reservoir Dogs?
Mm-hmm. He was Mr. Orange.
Dogs? I've never seen that movie, by the way.
Really?
I need to see it.
Go watch it, man. It's a phenomenal movie. But yeah, he's super young in Reservoir Dogs. Like, he's so like skinny, it seems like. But yeah, but that's immediately where he was in Pulp Fiction as well.
Wow. Mm-hmm. He was in Pulp Fiction?
He played some character in Pulp Fiction, I'm pretty sure.
That's news to me.
Yeah. So, Tim Roth. Good actor.
Tim Roth, good actor, and kind of sexy.
Well, he's got a weird posture throughout every episode. He's like a question mark each one, whatever. But
Tim Roth,
it's really great. So watch Lie to Me, watch Reservoir Dogs, if you haven't. So what have you been up to this week?
I'm doing the Tim Roth Pulp Fiction dance kind of thing.
Whatever.
Me? Well, I know what I've been up to. Landon.
I knew what I was up to, I just don't know the order.
Battlefield 1943, again, as I mentioned before. Holy crap, I've got 280 hours combined time in this game. Just got over 10,000 kills in the PlayStation 3.
I put in Final Fantasy 10.
Yeah, and I'm still playing. One of the best online first-person shooters ever of all time. Infinite to the ends of the earth. Eric and I still play it. We have tons of fun in it, and I just can't recommend it enough. If you don't have Battlefield 1943, and you didn't get it in some weird download pack, buy it. Download it and try the hour-long demo.
Yeah.
Try it online for free.
What was the price of it? Purchase?
$15 now, I think.
Okay.
Might even be down to 10. Some crazy price,
Yeah.
but it's well worth it. You gotta buy it. The other thing I've been up to this week is a game called Zen Pinball for the Nintendo 3DS by Zen Studios. Now, for those of you who don't know who Zen Studios are, same folks that brought you the Williams Pinball Collection. If you're a fan of that, I don't know. You played the Williams Pinball Collection?
I'm not a big pinball guy. Like
Well,
real pinball or virtual
Doesn't
pinball.
life suck for you?
It doesn't.
You haven't
it's not for me.
experienced life in its fullest extent if you don't.
Hey, I played
enjoy
pinball at your guys' game night and destroyed at it. So take that.
Well, when you go over to our friend Sean's house,
no,
we'll
I'm
play
su-
real pinball.
Yeah, I'm sure other people are better.
and
than
you'll
me. I just
enjoy
said,
it.
hey,
No, you'll enjoy it.
I did all
We will
right.
convert you.
All right.
But this is the same folks who did the Williams Pinball Hall of Fame collection, and it is a phenomenal pinball game. It's a downloadable title on 3DS, $7.99 I think, but the 3D in it is really well done, and the tables themselves they're not name brand tables, they're not anything you recognize, they're just created tables, but they're super fun, the lay of them's great, they have online scoreboards of course, and you can match up with friends. They do a cool feature where you can match up with other friends you have, and you have kind of a team score. So everyone on your friends list has a team score. So you're trying to help your team get a higher score so they can beat other teams in the game. So great game for the 3DS. $7.99, and the 3D is wonderful in it too. So
It's a download.
download title on the 3DS eShop. You want to check it out. Zen Pinball.
All right.
It's like a
so
Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Boop, 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 boop,
As it
boop,
crashes
boop,
through
boop, boop. One of them deals, huh?
Alrighty. You're proud of yourself on that one, huh?
Oh, they're saying Ninja says pinball sucks. Ouch. Chatia! Welcome! Yeah, we've had issues with chat loading up. We're sorry.
It's
If you
taking
can't
forever.
if you can't get your chat to load up, we apologize about
I mean,
that.
once it's up though, it's
It's pretty solid.
solid.
Yeah,
but it just takes like
exactly.
about 15 minutes to pull it in. So-
And I will mention a couple things before we get into our main topic. One, of course, tonight's featured music is from Gate of Thunder, a wonderful game by Hudson Soft. If you haven't played it, you need to play it. You should. No need to mention anything more than that. Also, as Landon mentioned earlier,
Got some good news.
we do. We have some great news.
Yeah, we are now officially a part of Machinima.
Yeah, on our YouTube channel. We partnered up with them. We've kind of gone through a little process with them about doing some partnering with them, and they said, hey, you guys don't suck, or you guys suck less than other people.
Yeah, we're okay.
We're okay. We're
yeah.
mediocre. Like, yeah,
Hey, cool guys.
you know, we can
We
let you
appreciate you.
slide in. So
We'll put you on the fridge.
there you go. Yeah, good job. So anyway, we've got that part on YouTube. So when you watch us on YouTube, you're helping us in the Machinima Partner
Contributing.
Program. You're contributing to us in a free fashion. So, shall we get into the first topic of the night,
Yep.
sir?
Do it.
Let's do it. So what are we talking about here?
Essentially, obviously, with the Nintendo Wii U is coming out some point this year. Rumors will begin speculating on the other big two, Microsoft and Sony, of what's their next console going to be. And as of late this week, people have been really going crazy with what's going to be the next Xbox console. Poorly named at this point as the Xbox 720, for lack of a better name for it. Essentially, people are throwing out rumors of it's going to have Blu Ray in it. It's going to have an anti-piracy, anti-used game something through it. There's a lot of rumors. We're kind of going to talk about them, what we kind of expect, what we think might be true, and what's kind of
So some of these are rumors, of course, and some of these have some factual. Or they all just rumors.
Some of it makes. There's
Right.
nothing's been official. Sony or Microsoft always comes out like, well, we won't comment, blah blah, But it's like in my mind, Blu-ray. If I don't see any reason why they're not going to use Blu-ray.
That makes sense.
It
I mean,
makes
it's the
sense
new
on
form
multiple-
of media.
Yeah, I mean, in less of a fact that yes, Blu-ray holds a lot more data than a traditional DVD would. Less of the fact of that. It's just that Microsoft, what they've been doing for a while, is trying to make their console your entertainment hub, the center of your living room, the center of your entertainment, all of your media. And it would be really stupid of them not to include Blu-ray. That's
If they want to be the center of your entertainment, of course,
right.
yeah.
And clearly that's what they want to do with the Xbox dashboard update. They want to be your
Now, when
entertainment
does
device.
Sony? I know Sony's got a certain time limit on the copyright of, or not that, I forget what it was. There was some kind of time limit they had to where they couldn't get as much royalties on the licensing of Blu-ray technology.
I don't know about that. I know that there's, other companies are, manufacturing the Blu-ray discs and stuff. So it's not that, so it's not necessarily like, oh, Microsoft won't ever do this because Sony owns it all. It's like, well, that's not really true. So there's no real reason for them not to use Blu-ray. There's just benefits all around.
It makes sense.
So if that happens, I expect it. Because
Boomzies says it's true.
Well, and it doesn't make any. I can't imagine that this quickly after the HD DVD and Blu-ray little war that Microsoft is really going to try again and
with
endorse
storage,
another.
With storage, we're talking about Final Fantasy 13 coming on multiple discs on the 360, and Metal Gear, the HD collection coming on multiple discs. So I don't see anybody at Microsoft going, "Yeah, DVDs are the future for our next system." DVD is out.
Yeah.
And if they're not going to use Blu-ray, then they're going to have to.
Well, I don't see that.
They have to invest in some really expensive technology.
Well, that's what I was getting at next. Is like I don't see the next console being a point where it's on cards, like SD cards type format either. And I don't see Microsoft creating a new format, creating a new disc-based format to compete with Blu-ray, either in video, film, and all.
And sorry, everybody. Everybody's saying the chat's taking a long time to load. I don't know what is up with the servers today. We took forever for us to load too as well. Decepticreep says, I hope the disc speed will be faster than the PS3 if Blu-ray disc is used for the next Xbox.
I'm less concerned with. They say that the next Xbox is going to be 6 times as powerful as the current 360, and I'm like, I hope that does not come with 6 times as hot and 6 times as loud.
You're going to get the triple red ring of death.
Yeah. It's like, oh, cool, it's awesome for 10 minutes and then it's dead because it's so fucking
See, that's
hot.
what... Make a reliable console.
Yeah.
Make a reliable console first and foremost, and I'll be happy. Because I don't... power's one thing, but give me something I can actually use for more than a week before it burns up and I got to send it in to return it. It's not worth it.
Yep.
And, of course, if you have opinions on this... If you want to tell us your side of the story, of course, you can tell us here in chat, or talk to us on the phone.
Just call.
Via Skype.
2 ways.
2 ways, yes.
Right down there.
Via Skype, Boomzies is the name, or via phone, 316-778-0730, and tell us what you feel about this whole Xbox 720 debacle.
Yeah.
What's your opinion?
But, some of the other, this is kind of more of the serious, less... with Blu-ray, it's kind of like, well, that's probably going to happen. With this, we don't really know. It seems plausible, but there have been rumors that the next Xbox will include some sort of anti-disc piracy, a way that potentially you can no longer use used games on your Xbox to both combat people, selling to their friends, etc., or selling to used game stores, combat and get that revenue back. Essentially, which doesn't make sense.
If that's true, then I think it's over for the Xbox 720 because it's going to be, if it's announced before it comes out, see, that's really where you screw yourself over. If it's an update after the system's over and everybody's already bought it, that's one deal. Oh, we got a call on the Boomzies phone. Hello, you've called the magical Boomzies phone. Who are we talking to?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I just don't know about this, whole Xbox 720 thing. If you remember the original Xbox, they came out with the 360, and then, like 2010, they shut down Xbox Live. I'm just hoping they don't do that with the 720 as well, because that would suck if they did that twice. I mean, I get that the Xbox didn't have very great hardware, but it's like, if you're just going to keep doing that, then what's the point of buying the console? Because eventually you're going to shut down Live.
Well, I don't think they're going to do it anytime soon. It's not going to be like, well, the new system's out, let's just kill Xbox Live for the 360s. I think that's going to be a long process, probably at least a 5 to 6, 7 year time.
I think Cookie's saying is he's hoping that there's more time for people to adopt, or, which is what maybe I'm picking up on, just let it keep going on.
Yeah.
The original Xbox, I hated when they cut the live support for that, because I had a lot of games I would still love to play now.
Right. Well, Sony, you can still play games online with your PS2, so...
See, and that's where I think, hey, I want to play Crimson Skies online, I should be able to.
Right.
Well,
because you can't play, what is that?
Me and my friends were talking about this too, and it was like, what was the reason they shut it down? And I heard one of my friends say it was because something like the friends list and the RAM of the original Xbox couldn't handle more than what they put in Halo 2.
There's
So
some kind of, I know there's compatibility
yeah.
issues, which I hope with the 360 they would have ironed out to be easily
just
upgradable.
Hope they don't go like, I just hope they don't go like Xbox 720 needs this new feature, so we have to shut down 360s because it's limiting us from doing that.
Well,
I would like to hope that they have learned a lesson from people, from the outcry from it.
but I say that's more of a possibility now, with digital download becoming such a huge thing. And on the subject of us talking about used games, sales being stopped, in the end, Xbox and Microsoft want your money. So when you buy the 720, they would rather you purchase, I imagine what would be done is they can say, buy Xbox 360 games, digital download, for online play, only through the Xbox 720 digital download. You see what I'm saying? So you have a way to still get a little more money and let them play online, because that's what they're all about, is making that money.
Yeah, I just hope if the 720 is coming out like in maybe a year or so, I hope that it has like this thing where you can put bigger hard drives in it, because I actually own quite a few games on demand games, and even with the 250 gigs, those games just eat up so much space. It's unreal.
Yeah. I'm thinking they should. I imagine probably when the Xbox 720 comes out, they'll have that whole storage thing figured out. It's not going to be like Nintendo with the Wii. And like, I got a new Wii, or I got a new system. How do I transfer it over?
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that.
Oh
Just
man, if they don't let me
forget
transfer my games on demand games, I'm just gonna flip, like literally.
You'll be playing the PS4.
Pretty much.
Well, yeah, because I mean, Sony does a really good job with stuff like that. So
who knows?
Yeah,
Only time will tell.
We're seeing it with Vita as well. Like, well, they're doing a sort of good job with that, but if you can migrate your PSN account, you don't have to make a new one or anything like that.
I think they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We can only
Let's hope they get it right, though.
Well, sir, Cookie Army, one of our most faithful mods, callers, Twitter followers, house stalkers, all of the above.
Is that where you're going with this?
Thank you for calling, sir.
Awesome.
We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Anytime, bud.
Thanks.
See you later.
Yep.
But, I mean, I certainly see a possibility where Microsoft will continue to do, like, the online pass thing, you know? And hopefully maybe if that does happen, then prices will become affordable. I do get worried. I think the issue is like, I understand that they want to get more money, but do things in a way that benefits the customer and you still get more money, rather than you getting more money and pissing off your consumer, because you're not going to get the money that way. So make digital content much more affordable than purchasing it in stores. Make them have digital sales more frequently. Make it more of a retail situation.
People bought, beyond the fact they love The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. But remember when they put that out and they said, buy it within this time limit and we'll give you a free soundtrack.
Right.
That was an awesome offer. I know a ton of people who took advantage. Oh, we got to call the Boomzies phone. Hello, you've called the Magical Boomzies phone. Who are we talking to?
Yo, what's up, man? It's Decepticrete.
Hey, Decepticrete, my man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How you guys doing?
Well, you know, we're together. We're warm.
Being prepared for what comes later today.
Yeah, we're just being kind now because it's going to be bloody.
Gotcha. Well, I know, I just think that I think it'd be a mistake for Microsoft to do an anti-piracy thing for their new system, simply because they're coming out first. And they're going to be like, okay, you know, we have anti-piracy in our disc. You know, you can't buy used games. All Sony needs to do is like, well, guess what? You can play used games on our system, and that's going to shoot down any 360 or any Xbox user. It's just, I think it's a mistake.
Yeah. And Sony's been the best, I think, out of all the systems as far as backwards compatibility goes. I mean, at least at first with the 60 and the 20 gig, I could play my PS1, my PS2, and my PS3 games. Which is awesome. They do great at that. So, I think you're right.
The Vita's supposed to be compatible with the downloadable PSP games and the PS1 classics that you download, so that's kind of cool.
And they're supposed to be saying that if you purchase the digital content, it will be discounted in comparison to full retail versions, which is a good move in my opinion as well.
we'll see how much of a discount it is. It's like
Yeah.
$5. I don't think
Yeah, you
it's
got to
worth
kind of
it.
wait and see. But if it's true. So now, in your opinion, do you feel like it is time for another Xbox console? Because I feel like if any console is ready for another one, it would be Microsoft versus PlayStation 3. I think PlayStation 3, because of the technology that's in it, I think it can last
and
for
the Vita coming out, too.
quite a while. Where I think with Xbox being on just DVDs, it's about time that it needs to do something else.
Yeah.
It came out before the PlayStation 3. It's about time.
Personally, I don't know. I haven't paid for Xbox Live in over a year, so it's not that big of a deal if it comes out or not. I don't.
Yeah, I haven't
at this
seen you on
point,
Xbox
you know,
Live.
I'm saying at this point, I'm pushing 30. I have a child. I can't just go be buying all three systems anymore. So the system that comes out, it's got to have to be the best system. I'm looking at the Wii U, and I don't think that's going to be one of the systems pretty much between the 360 and the new the new 360, so the new Xbox and the new PlayStation. And I'll probably wait until the PlayStation comes out before I make my decision.
So do you think with gamers getting older, naturally, that they're going to be a little more cautious about what system they buy and maybe wait until two options at least are out or all three are out?
I don't know if my opinion reflects that of most other people, but that's definitely what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I can't afford, to buy all three systems like I used to. And if it depends, we don't know what the online services are going to be either. If the new Sony's going to charge for their online services, and Xbox is going to charge for theirs, I mean, they already raised theirs $10 in this last system, and that's the reason why I stopped paying for Xbox Live. Because PlayStation
It just wasn't worth it for you.
So it's just, I don't know. I have to play it by ear.
What's that?
That's it for me.
Let's play it by ear.
Oh, play it by ear. You said play it by ear, and I couldn't hear it in my ear.
Yeah.
Ha ha!
Anyways, guys,
Well,
take care.
Hey, you
All
do
right,
the
thanks,
same,
dude.
bud. See ya. Hey, Ty, by the way, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. And Backburner.
So, anyways, what about you? Do you feel like it's time for a next Xbox?
I know it's in the climate of games with the Wii U coming out. I think it's a smart time to come out.
I don't think it's a necessary need to compare it to the Wii U, just because the Wii hasn't been as much of a direct competitor for Xbox and PS3 as Xbox and PS3 have been to each other.
Right.
Just in terms of, it's like they kind of stand together while the Wii
Well,
stands
what I'm saying
away.
is kind of agreeing with you saying. It's the next logical one to come out.
Yeah.
I don't see Sony coming out with anything else new. Oh, got another call on the Boomzies phone. Hello, we called the Boomzies phone. Who are we talking to?
I agree with you saying it's the next logical one to come out.
Hello?
You might need to turn down your
Turn down your computer or digital device and listen to us through your phone. Hello?
Oh, I can hear you. I got lag because I'm watching you guys on the computer.
There you
so I got
go.
lag.
That's all right. It's all right. Who are we talking to?
Zach from Ohio.
How you doing, man?
Very good.
So what do you think about all this?
Well, it's going to be tough to say because I've been an Xbox guy since day one. Like,
If 720 comes out,
want-
you're there day one.
I might get it. It just depends on how they handle everything. Like, they do backwards compatibility. That's like check mark one. If they do the piracy thing, then I'm going to be like, why should I do this?
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, like, if you look at the way they're doing things now, like, call it Modern Warfare 3. You got to pay for Elite. On top of all the other, on top of the map packs, on top of
Right.
all this other stuff, you know what
And
I mean?
Xbox Live and everything else. So, do you see the problem being more developers and publishers charging for their own separate content than Microsoft charging for live or any other kind of digital download content?
Well, it depends on how people look at it. Like, Microsoft was always going to charge for live no matter what. They got to make money somehow.
Yeah.
The downloadable content, like, when I look through, like, the DLC stuff, sometimes I'm like, do we really need to pay this much money for an extra map or a few extra guns or skin.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I'm just hoping that whatever charge they come out with is going to be fair. Because if you charge for a fair price, I'll pay whatever it is. I don't mind, but it's when they start nickel and diming you that I hate it. So.
Yeah, the same here, because when I bought Saints Row Double Pack, I remember looking at the DLC, and I bought the DLC for Saints Row 2. I'm like, really?
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks for calling up, man. We appreciate you infusing our show with your opinions.
Oh, no problem at all, man.
You have a wonderful evening, sir.
Thanks, man.
You too.
Well, anyways, I think we probably.
I think we've covered it.
A little bit
you
on
know,
this
we've
one.
gone through the rumors, but in the end,
So.
we'll just have to wait and see.
Yep.
Wait and see.
Check it out.
So, tell us about our next topic of the evening, good sir.
Okay, well, essentially, just kind of get everybody up to speed on what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be using terms of narratology and ludology. Essentially, these are terms for... What the fuck is this?
I'm getting ready.
What is this? Essentially, these are terms of how to study and how to interpret and look at games through a specific viewpoint, through an eyeglass, if you will. So with ludology, that is essentially the study of games through gameplay and gameplay only,
Mechanics.
and mechanics, and that is primarily what games should be about. And the study of narratology has the word narrative in it, so you can kind of guess that is more a focus on the story. It is focused on the not the actions, but the reasoning behind what you're doing, the characters that are
narrative,
in there, and everything. And it's, you know, you should essentially, narratology is making it to where video games can be compared to literature and cinema, and that it should be in an entertainment field. Now, these are two completely varying ways
Schools
to look
of
at video
thoughts,
games. Personally, I feel like both are wrong and right in many aspects. I don't feel...
if you would lean to one side, if this was a political party, as it
I
were.
honestly can't, because I 100% agree with a lot of what ludology says. I will be the first to tell you that I 100% agree with a large portion of that. But the way that I feel is that there is no across the board, across a blanketed statement about how every video game should be looked at. And the thing with, you need to know about ludology, it's not specifically on video games. It is all forms of games, be it board games, games that are such as D&D. That's how they look at it, as the mechanics. So it's not specifically
but
on
not specifically,
video
but
games.
the premise and the precepts can be applied
Right,
to the realm of video games.
Right, and I'm just saying,
Kind
like,
of the
this
idea.
is it's a broad study, is what this. It's been going on for 10, 15 years.
And it's only been recently really adopted into the world of video games.
Yeah, and yes, well, I mean, because video games have now become
Right.
such a large market to the point where it's a bigger industry than cinema and film. And so how I feel, like I said, I don't feel like there is an across the board blanketed answer for this. I just don't think that can be that way. So I honestly, I cannot tell you that I lean to one or the other, because I fully agree with both. So he clearly does lead towards ludology.
I'm a ludologist, as it were. Ludology. I just say ludologist because it makes me sound. I'm gonna just go to people like, yes, I'm a ludologist, and they're like, ooh, well, Harvard man, huh? Ooh, brush off our coat for this boy here. He's a real fancy shoe boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for, at least.
But anyway, so it's a way to study games, and.
So the question is, who's going to throw the first punch?
Yeah,
that's
how do we?
We've like introduced this like tiptoe, and it's like, all right,
How do we jump
who's
right
throwing
into
the
this?
first bomb, you or me?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, and then on top of this, you have to understand that video games, like I said, this has been a conversation for over 15 years, and clearly, video games have vastly advanced from 15, 20, 30 years prior to where they're at now. It's in my opinion, it's a whole different beast from where games were at the age of Pong to where we're at now with Mass Effect 2 and 3 coming out. I think it's a totally different world at this point. A lot of the same rules apply, but I feel like things have advanced to a point where that needs to be taken into consideration. So do you want to just jump in, and because I know you're going to be kind of on the attack. I know that during this entire episode I'm going to be on the defensive here. I understand that. It's very easy to be anti, and it's very difficult to be.
I will just say to start up then to put my point. I feel, and the reason this topic is between Landon and I, that a lot of emphasis on story and narrative has been placed on video games in a lot of good ways. And I will say, as far as narrative and story goes, I'm a big proponent of the idea of telling a story or showing a narrative, because I love the Metal Gear Solid series. And, hey, Metal Gear Solid 4 is all about narrative. Hour-long cutscene narratives, okay?
I'll give you a pause. You can go piss.
You can go piss. I was like, pause. And I love the Mass Effect series. Again, a series by a company I could care less for, BioWare, but I think they did a great job embedding gameplay and story. That being said, I feel that as of late there have been games that have gotten what I would call a free ride, or given a little more just an excuse, because the story is so amazing, even though maybe every other element is poor or mediocre. And that's where I really have the issue. I'm a big firm believer that the gameplay should come first, the interactivity, the mechanics, the building blocks of the game should come first, even if that is built off of a story, and then build the world around that.
But there's always going to be bad games. There's no getting around.
Oh, sure. No, there will always be bad games.
But I don't think that in that game developers should not, when they sit down, they're like, okay, we're going to create a new game.
Ludicrousologist? Yeah, exactly. Hey, Eddie.
I don't believe that when game developers sit down, they're like, okay, we're going to create a new game. Okay, we got a table of people here. How do we want this to play first? I don't think that's...
That is very much...
Not in all cases, though.
Not in all cases, but I mean, there are cases...
They're going to sit down and they're going to try to decide, okay, what's the story going to be? What are the people that...
I don't think that's everybody either.
Let me talk.
I don't think that's everybody
Hold on. No, I'm not saying everybody. I never said it's everybody.
Right. That's what I'm just counterpointing to. You said, I don't think it's everybody who does it your way of gameplay. I think there's a happy medium that there are... I feel more the Japanese developers, such as the interview I saw with Hideo Kojima speaking about the development of the new Metal Gear game. They spoke about developing the game with gameplay in mind first, then story.
Okay, let me talk.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so, but I think that it's not an across the, like I said at the beginning, there's not an across the board statement here. You can't boil games down to one philosophy, especially when it's such a narrow philosophy. I think when there's going to be game developers that are going to sit down and they're going to decide what's the story going to be, who are the people or the characters, what is going to be this interaction. So they are still deciding gameplay, but they're deciding what that is, who that is, what's your reasoning for doing this. If it's as simple as to win, like in Pong, what's your goal? To win, to get the ball across.
But there is no story in Pong. There is no narrative.
But people can argue, which I find this weird. This is where I fit into the Ludology. That is 100% gameplay. Awesome. It doesn't need the story in that sense. So this is where I do 100% agree with you.
But there is story in that. There is story in that.
Well, you can argue that, the story is to win.
Here's what I will say, and where I come from, I do kind of agree with what Narratology says, that when you grew up playing games, the story of playing Super Mario Brothers, for me, was never about Mario rescuing Peach from Bowser. It was the experience of playing the game and going on your schoolyard and being like, okay, what did you do today? Okay, there was this level 2, and there are these blue Goombas that jumped over, and there's the secret up top. And essentially what you're doing is, you're telling the story of what you did, of the actions you did. And that in itself, and I can even bring that up today, people play Skyrim and Xbox Live parties all the time. That's like a big thing, because people are talking about their experiences, like, okay, this big dragon just did this, and da-da. So you're telling a story with other people, even though this is a new game with an element of story itself. That kind of storytelling, that narrative, I will agree with. I like that idea, because I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is a narrative. That's in a case where what you just described with Skyrim, I would describe as a very Sims situation, where Sims, there is no direct story built into it.
Yes.
You create your story.
Exactly.
But it is built to that cause. When Will Wright created that, it was built not necessarily on the gameplay mechanic. It was built on how can you create your own story, create your own life. So when he gives you the option to create your character, you're going to more than likely create it in your own likeness or what you fantasize yourself to be like, and you're going to live your life the way that you can and you want to, and you might do
about
that.
being a lemur.
Sure. Well, we'll have furry Sims for you.
Stripping lemur.
But, and so, like, I think that's that case where I've got one graphic on there that kind of talks about this. I think it's the Janet.
Okay.
Pull up Janet. What does it say?
Narrative analysis.
Yes, here, her second paragraph here. I'll just read the whole thing, but the second paragraph is where I want to focus on. Narrative analysis need not be prescriptive, even if some narratologists do seem to be advocating for games to pursue particular narrative forms. Here's where I fully agree with here. There is no one future of games. The goal should be to foster, I can't read from this distance,
foster
so small.
diversification of genres, aesthetics, and audiences to open gamers to the broadest possible range of experiences.
Yeah, so I don't think that you should look at narrative in a one-dimensional form. You should look at it and there should be a diversification. Like she said, it should be to betterment the video games and use these elements in various ways. And excuse me.
Well, and I will agree with you there. What I will say to that is, notice what she says here. She does say the goal should be to foster diversification of genres, aesthetics, and audiences to open gamers to the broadest possible. And I will agree, genres, aesthetics, and audiences, I will agree completely with that idea that we need diversification. But in that, she doesn't tie in exactly what she means about story or narrative. She just says genres, aesthetics, and audiences.
Right, but what she talks about in the rest of her statements there is that you have a mixture of these elements, like we had kind of talked about in our previous couple episodes back, where the breakdown of a video game, you've got your different elements, and it's the mixture of those elements that give you these different genres, and there are a different percentage. And what I would argue, and she agreed with before, is that sure, gameplay has to be there to be a game. But that does not mean that when you break up a game into a percentage of a total of 100%, that because that is the most important, that is always going to be 50% or more of that breakdown of that video game. It's a different mixture of, say, 25% gameplay, but you've got 50% this and 15 this and whatever, it adds up to 100. And so that's how you get your diversification of your genres through that. And that's why when she would argue that both narratology and ludology, which I fully agree with, are too narrow of viewpoints in how games should be judged and how games should be analyzed. It's just far too narrow, and it just doesn't work for everything. Because in the history of video games, where we started out 30 years ago, it was one way. Things were very limited. There was only so much that you could do. Now, video games are almost they're as much art as interpretive dance as anything like that. And so you draw lines it's a very blurred line. And I don't think such a narrow perspective will work in that case.
Well, see, and that's where I think story, in its essence, is a linear element. A story is told from point A to point B. That is the story. And there can be times where a story can limit what is an interactive experience. And I've got a kind of a quote here I wanted to go over. And this is actually one of the first quotes I wanted to use that isn't from a gamer, that isn't from a person in the game industry. It's from a person named Don Carson, who was a famous Walt Disney Imagineer who designed Disney World, the original one. He says, the story element is infused into the physical space a guest walks or rides through, speaking about the rides he makes. It is the physical space that does much of the work of conveying the story the designers are trying to tell. And that is something I wholeheartedly agree with, that in game design, in game mechanics, I think a lot of developers lose an opportunity to tell that story and that narrative through its trappings, through its devices. And if you only tell a story through the classic narrative as we would a story on a book or in a movie, I think you're losing a lot of the ability that is special, that is unique to a game.
Well, you have to tell a story in your own unique way through games. There's not going to be... you can't take a book and just directly turn that into a video game. It's all different form of media.
Of course not. No, it's transmedia you're talking about there.
It needs to be adjusted.
But in that, exactly adjusted, because you have a video game that is an interactive element, then use the tools of interacting with your space and the world beyond just a narrator, beyond just
they need to work
having
together.
dialogue. they need to be able to infuse these new elements that aren't able to be done in a book or a movie.
No, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree. Like I said, I'm with Ludology in a lot of things, but the thing is that you should not solely judge your game based on the gameplay.
I think you should. I think you should.
There's many more elements. There's games that the gameplay is awful, but the story is fantastic, and you're going to judge it on that.
But it's a video game.
Sure.
It's a video game.
Sure.
Why play a video game if the gameplay is terrible? It makes no sense.
They took. It's not like they intended to go out and create a bad gameplay experience. That's why there's going to be bad games.
Well, I don't say they intended to, but I'm certainly not going to wait. Even their best intentions.
There's plenty of games out there that are fantastic games that are emphasized through story.
Yes, I agree, but the problem is the subject we're talking about is a game that has a terrible gameplay but a great story.
And that's just a bad game.
Well, exactly. So
There's games with terrible gameplay and they're bad games. That argument is stupid.
Hello, those guys in the overshirts. How you doing, you sexy beasts?
Hello?
Hello? Can you hear us?
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, hold on, I think I'm getting problems. I can't hear you.
Technical difficulties. Can you hear
Speak
us?
real quick.
Hello. Testing. Because our Skype's working. Don't mess with us, man. It was working, wasn't it?
Yeah, we got one call in.
And we did. I think it's your fault.
Oh,
I think you're the one with the issue.
you know what? I will come back.
Okay. Great idea.
Yeah.
Well, let me put this other quote up here real quick. This is from Henry Jenkins. You say narrative to the average gamer, and what they are apt to imagine is something on the order of a choose-your-own-adventure book, a form noted for its lifelessness and mechanical exposition rather than enthralling entertainment, thematic sophistication, or character complexity.
But see, that is looking at narrative in a one dimension. You have to look at narrative. There's multiple ways that you can use narrative in a game. Like I had mentioned with Sims, that is not a choose your own path, dungeons lair type experience.
Right.
That is very much an immersive. You are fully in this world. You start off with really nothing, and you're just making your decisions.
Well, I'm fine with The Sims. I think The Sims is a fine game. I'm not into it personally, but I think from a gameplay perspective,
you have to look at that.
Right.
That is a narrative. 100%.
That is. I will agree that's a narrative.
And that is not a choose your own adventure.
No, I will agree.
Henry Jenkins, if you read all of his article, he doesn't really side to one or the other.
No, he doesn't side to one or the other, but he makes good points for both arguments.
Right.
He does make good, valid points for both arguments, I'll
which
say.
is exactly what I'm trying to say, is that there is, honestly, there is no right or wrong in this.
I would disagree with you on that.
Well,
But
I've got some more stuff here in a minute.
Hello? Did you get things worked out? Is it worked out?
Yeah.
'Cause we're live, man. We can't afford these technical difficulties.
I'm stupid.
Well, your apologies accepted. All right? You go to your room after this.
Apology. I'm a horrible, horrible person.
You are. So what do you have to say, horrible person?
Well, I wanted to comment on your comment you made like 20 seconds ago about how if the gameplay is bad and the gameplay should not be bad and stuff, and that makes a bad game. And
yeah.
I do agree with that and all, but I also kind of disagree. An example I wanted to use was Deadly Premonition. Have you ever played that at all? Or nobody?
I played
and I
that.
like Deadly Premonition. That's where I was kind of.
Yeah.
I was kind of getting to that.
The game's gameplay is clunky and stuff.
It's terrible.
I just love it because of like the story, and that's what got me into it so much.
That's
gives you a
but
reason to continue playing.
That's a guilty pleasure, I guess you could say.
No, you enjoy it and you want to continue playing. People are going to play games for different reasons.
It interests me a lot in how kooky and crazy it is.
Yeah, it's very unique.
See, I can't stand bad or mediocre when I could be playing something much better. Personally,
But this is not an argument of what's a good game and what's a bad game. This is an argument of how games
it's
should
got
be
bad
looked at.
gameplay. It has bad, poor mechanics, core gameplay mechanics that both you and him admit. I personally, I don't want to buy a game like that. I have too many games that have great gameplay mechanics to waste my time on that.
The story is just so interesting.
Yeah.
That it makes you keep on going forward. Plus, I replayed Deadly Premonition because of all the little side quests, which gave more interesting stories about the characters and everything. So, yeah, the gameplay is bad. They could have improved on it, but the story side is just so interesting. It just kept on me going, and that's why I love that game so much. It's just so gosh darn interesting.
Right. And you can have great story and everything, but the thing is that he doesn't really kind of get is the fact that, yes, gameplay has to be there, and so there's plenty of games that have gameplay but no story, and those are great games. But he can easily pick out a game that has shitty gameplay and a great story and call it a terrible game.
It's a terrible video game.
I can't
it's a terrible video game.
But listen, I can't turn and say, well, there's a game that has amazing story and there is no gameplay, because that's not true.
That's not a video game.
It's not a video game. I get that. That doesn't nullify my argument.
But you're just saying the story out.
You're just saying you're just saying that that's a bad game. That's a different argument.
But the point is,
completely different argument.
No, it's the same argument in the sense of how we're analyzing the game, and we're using the thesis of how we analyze that game to define it.
Do you count a game such as Heavy Rain? Do you count that as a video game?
A very poor one.
It's a good video game,
but I count it as a very poor video.
For some people,
it's Dragon's Lair with good graphics and boobs. Okay, that's what it is. It's like Dragon's Lair. Select your 2 actions and do mundane. Except it's mundane Dragon's Lair.
No,
it's Dragon's Lair Molasses Edition.
The mystery in that game is just it's like going back.
Oh,
it's
the
so
mystery! You didn't know who the chick. Come on.
No, dude.
I figured out who that was way before they told me. Dude. And then when I won, I was like,
please
"There's
don't tell me I'm not done with it."
Yeah, don't ruin it for people.
I'm not.
But look, the thing is, like he wants to. You're dumbing down every game to this Dragon's Lair.
But I'm boiling it down. I'm boiling it down to its lowest.
But that's not what the game is.
denominator.
The game is not boiled down to that point. That game, your characters can die and they won't come back, and that's going to give you a complete. That's not a choose your own path thing, man. Fucking shit can happen, and it will implement.
That is
the
a choose your own adventure.
There's so many different branches.
That's it. Whether it's 2 branches or 100 branches, it's still a linear story chopped up into small bits.
That doesn't make it a bad game.
You can chop it up into 100 bits or into 2.
You can have different outcomes.
Yeah, you can have different outcomes, but that's a choose-your-own-adventure book. That's what that is.
You're boiling it down to like a left and a fucking right, man.
Well, hey, whether you have a left or right, an up or a down, you can have as many directions as you want. In essence, it is still a choose-your-own-adventure book, no matter how many choices you have.
It just makes it a bad game for you.
No, and as
that
a
game can be judged on its story. We're clearly
mechanics.
judging it on its story right now.
But game story and video game gameplay are not one and the same. They don't go together. It's oil and water.
It's... Okay.
Anyway, anything else you had to say, sir, before we kill each other?
Well, in the opposite side of the spectrum, like games can have great gameplay and like have no story at all. Like Dark Souls, for example. I freaking love Dark Souls.
But Contra. Contra on the NES, baby.
Going on there. Yeah, Contra. Don't know what's going on. Like
exactly. I'm fighting Red Falcon and aliens. What's my motivation? Nothing. Kill. Great game. No story at all.
It's a great game.
I'm not arguing that. I've never argued that.
Well, sir, thank you for your call.
Yeah. Thanks.
We appreciate it. And if you haven't followed those guys in your shirts, follow them. Great people here on Just.tv.
I blame myself entirely. I'm trying to work on the stream, so I'm messing with settings. So
you can do it.
I'm a terrible person.
We believe in you, sir. We believe in you.
Oh, thank you. So I'm gonna go.
See you later, man.
Bye.
I think we confused and scared him there at the very end. He was like, "Oh, well, okay, I'm gonna get off. I'm gonna run now."
Well, let me. I'm gonna throw up. You want to throw up one of your quotes here?
No, throw one of yours up. I'll get to mine in a minute.
This is one I really like. Marku, whatever his last name is.
Yes, I've read.
I've read his stuff quite a bit. Yes. Outside academic theory, people are usually excellent at making distinctions between narrative, drama, and games. If I throw a ball at you, I don't expect you to drop it and wait until it starts telling stories.
Right.
So the problem is that games, as we're kind of going back to the idea that you said Ludology was about games in general and video games more specific, story and games are 2 separate elements being balanced between each other, oil and water. One can't, you can't just have story overtake gameplay completely.
The old story. I mean, gameplay has to be there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but they're not. Like you said, you don't expect someone to tell you a story when they throw a ball at you. You're like, oh, it's a ball. I'm playing a game.
Your thing is like they're oil and water. They can't come together. So you envision a world of video games with no story, and you want nothing but gameplay. You want to go to Pac-Man.
If we went
For
back,
everything.
if we went back as a gaming
And
society,
that's ignorant as shit.
if we went back, okay, to a society of video game developers focused first on gameplay and mechanics, we would be in a much better gaming world. We would have much better. And hey, tack
You're
the
disappointed with our gaming world right now,
and
with
tack
all the
the
shit
story
we have.
and tack the story on later.
No!
Because that is not a world. I want to be in a world where we are having people that are saying gameplay first. How do we make this game play better? Because it's an interactive media that is unlike any other media. So to describe it or to put in these confines that, well, we can make it like a movie and just, build it around this story. It's not. It needs to be built around gameplay first with all the other elements put on afterwards.
It doesn't have to always be that way.
It should
man.
always
It
be
doesn't.
that way. It should.
Pull up my the first Ninja Theory
Okay.
one. All right, this guy. This is the lead. Was he the lead chief designer for Ninja Theory? His name is, what's his name? I can't read it there.
His name is Tanaru Antonadoyas or something like that. I don't know.
Great name.
Great name. All these people have great
But anyways,
names.
he is talking about, he says, what we are creating is a story adventure. Every element in the game should support that. So I actually see story as, and I'm not embarrassed to say it, the most important part of the game experience. But, here's the thing, but it doesn't mean that other gameplay or other elements of a video game can lag behind. A story must permeate through all aspects of a creation. Everything including the gameplay, which has to be solid, the sounds, the cinematics, the cameras, and the action. All of those things are a part of the story, he said. Now pull up my other one.
Okay.
So, and it doesn't, he's got a philosophy. I'm not going to say that all Ninja Theory games are great, whatever. That's not what I'm here to
I don't know if
to
any
say.
of them are.
They were fun. They're not amazing, but it's a philosophy, and I agree with this guy. And he says, and if you manage to integrate all of those layers together, you get this kind of transcendental experiences that you remember from gaming that you get in games like Ico, Out of This World, the games that you hold dear to your heart and you never forget. These games clearly are intermixed. They're not as oil and water as you say. They're a marriage between the two. And if you do it right, you get a great experience, such as games of Ico, Shadow of the Colossus, where you've got this really great...
I don't think either of those are great games.
Well,
They're really boring. They're really boring games.
Let me continue here. You're in a different... Plenty of people love Shadow of the Colossus and Ico. Everybody's going to have different tastes in video games. I'm using those. He referenced Ico. I'm going to use them because I love those games. You're creating these games that have a great gameplay element, to me, to a lot of other people.
Dragging a little girl around with one hand for the whole thing. Or
whatever.
Trying
and
to
then
find a Colossus with a sword.
You've got this lovely story that is not told directly through text, but it's told through interactions, human emotions, in a similar sense to...
And I will say the story in those. I will say the story in Shadow of the Colossus and Ico is well done in I would say a Pixar-esque,
Well,
if you
that's
watch
what I was going
Up,
to say. It's very much like...
It's silent.
Up. Wall-E.
Or
in
Wall-E,
the sense
well.
how their interactions, it's all silent. It's in the same sense that Legend of Zelda. The main character Link, he doesn't talk, but he says so much with how his facial interactions.
And see now
and so that's ways to tell narrative.
But that is
in
a
different
part
ways.
of telling
That's
the
not
narrative
a fucking...
through. But it's telling narrative through the actual device of playing the game. You're intermixing the play of the game with these emotional responses from the characters that aren't solely dependent on a script or just some kind of cheap choose-your-own-adventure element.
Gameplay is important, and he says that too. I fully agree with it. Your gameplay has to be solid, otherwise it's a shitty game.
Well,
but
and it's
you
Ninja
can.
Theory. I mean, I don't really take their word as any kind of...
That guy has done more in video games than you and I have ever done. Give him
more
the respect.
crap, sure. I'll agree with him there. Yeah, sure. He's done more crap. What he's done Heavenly Sword, which is a mediocre quick-time action God of War wannabe. Okay. He's now doing the new Devil May Cry, which I cringe at the thought of them doing. I don't see Ninja Theory. Ninja Theory is not a established gaming house that I look at their thoughts and go, well, he's really got it figured out. If this guy tells me story's more important after a game like Heavenly Sword, then I might want to tell him, think back and make your gameplay better in Heavenly Sword, then worry about the story. Maybe that's where you went wrong in Heavenly Sword.
Stupid, man.
Well, tell me, is Heavenly Sword a great game?
You can't just write off his shit because you think his games are bad.
Well, tell me.
You can't write off all of his
me
statements.
if Heavenly Sword is a good game.
I liked Heavenly Sword.
You think
it
it's
wasn't
a great game?
I love God of War more. I like God of War
Where
more.
would you put Heavenly Sword on a 5-star basis, or 1 to 10? Where would you put Heavenly Sword?
On a 5-star, I'd say 2.5.
So it's mediocre. It's average.
It's average.
So
this is an argument of his games. This is an argument of his philosophy on how he builds games and how a lot
but
of
if
other
he builds a
developers
mediocre
build
game
games.
and he's telling us how he builds those mediocre games, I'm not excited about that. Hello, Ty. Mommy and Daddy are fighting. Don't mind. We're not going to get a divorce.
Yes, I can see Mommy and Daddy are fighting. Hi guys. Now since you are arguing with the story and gameplay and all that clashing stuff,
Yes.
I just wanted to get my opinions on that stuff. So, my opinion, I agree with Brian the most because I say every time that gameplay absolutely comes first, and story, sure, you can put that second, but gameplay, it's first. Man, it's first. And now I've played games that have a good story and good gameplay within, because let me give you an example, like an indie game like Limbo. Have you heard of Limbo before, guys?
Yeah.
Yes, I own it.
Yeah, like that game. Like it's kind of like Ico and Shadow of the Colossus, but this time there's like absolutely no text at all. It's telling the story as you progress. Like you can think up like, oh, the boy. Well, I really shouldn't spoil the game, really. But for example,
you make it up yourself. Like you said, you pull elements from the game and gameplay elements, and you kind of knit your own narrative.
Yeah, exactly. You aren't very clear what the story is about, but you can you can understand the story through your own thoughts, like, oh, this is maybe this connected with this,
right,
such as that.
Well, here's the thing. We're at 30 years now or more of creating video games, and things have advanced to the point where video games are no longer where they were at 25 years ago. We're at a new era. We're at a point where video games are as much art and as much creativity as,
I say they always
dance
were.
And everything.
I'd say they always were. The design that goes into a game like Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, if you look at the classic games, that took so much design and thought. That's an art process. The
right,
design
but you
of it
have
is
to
an art process.
have to agree that we're kind of things have shifted. We're 25 years later, and game.
Well, you mean in pop culture, as
Yeah,
far as art goes.
Yeah, because I agree that games in general are really evolving, and I also agree games do need to have story. They do need to have story. Sometimes it's not necessary. Like, for example, Mario's
Right.
Mario's been here for years, and he doesn't need story. Sure, you can implement.
And that's how he still
story.
survived.
There's a story. Save the princess from Bowser again. Blah, blah. There, you're done. And but there's stories that are so good, and the gameplay doesn't suck either. Like, I'm not sure if you heard of this game that's coming out in the United States in if I remember correctly, April, I think, called Xenoblade Chronicles, if I remember right the name.
Yeah, the Wii game.
Yeah, I actually imported that game from the UK to play it myself. Sorry about that sound.
That's okay.
And I thought the story in that was absolutely amazing, and the gameplay was addicting as hell. Man, it was just great. So yeah, that's just my opinions on this clash of gameplay and narrative, pretty much.
Thank you, sir, for calling us up, and we promise nothing's going to happen bad to Mommy and Daddy. We'll still come home. We'll all have dinner together, some meatloaf, something like that.
Of course.
Okay.
All right, then.
Thank you,
Bye,
Ty. We
guys.
appreciate it as always.
Of course. Bye.
See ya. Well, let me throw up here a quote. Ernest Adams had a really good quote here. It says, "Interactivity is almost the opposite of narrative. Narrative flows under the direction of the author, while interactivity..."
Sorry, that's incorrect, though.
While interactivity depends on the player for motive power. Storytelling, especially in a movie or a book, is completely passive.
In a movie and a book.
It is completely passive.
Not in a video game.
In a video game, the interactive. If you don't do anything without your interactivity and your input, the game goes nowhere. So yes, it does demand your interacting.
Sure,
with
yeah,
it.
it's the game.
But that's what I'm saying, because it's a game.
No,
exactly.
but my
you just said it.
No,
Without playing the
that's
game.
not my fucking argument.
I know
You
it's
don't
not, but
listen
you
to
made a
me.
good point. You made a good point. You said, but it's a game. Exactly. If you don't play the game, you don't get the story.
But here's the thing, man. I'm trying to fucking say that it is. I got weird there. I'm trying to fucking say, man.
No, man.
Word.
Back up from me, man. What you gotta be stepping on my narrator total things, man?
But look, dude, like I'm trying to say that there's not an across-the-board blanket answer. And what he says, where narrative is passive and it's only told by the narrator, I've said it multiple times now. Sims, great narrative in there. You are creating it.
But no,
though.
he doesn't
And
say that. He doesn't know. Read what he says. He says
interactive is almost the opposite.
interactive depends
narrative
on the
flows
player. Depends on the player for motive power. He does
talking
not
about
say
interactive.
That's what he's talking.
But he's talking narrative. I'm talking about narrative.
He's
He says
talking
narrative
about,
flows
yes.
under the direction of the author.
He's speaking about on the author about a book when he's speaking about just a normal narrative. But when he says while interactivity depends on the player for motive
But he's
power,
not talking about interactive narrative.
he's talking about while interactivity.
No, that's interactivity because he's making a comparison of interactivity and narrative as two separate things.
They are two
not
separate things.
interactive narrative.
what he's talking about, they're two separate things, and they are.
But he said, yeah, they're two different things. So they're two different statements. He says narrative has to flow under the author. Interactive is by the player.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Exclusively.
That's
But
what I'm talking about.
exclusively.
Gameplay.
But
That's what I'm
narrative-
talking about. Gameplay. The interactivity.
That's gameplay.
Gameplay.
But
right.
the narrative
and
of
without
Sims
that, you
is
wouldn't get
directed
the narrative.
through the player, not through the
But you wouldn't
author.
get it without interactivity.
But that
You
doesn't
wouldn't
change
get it.
That
You
doesn't
wouldn't get that
change-
narrative.
That does not change the fact that the narrative in Sims is created by the player, not
Exactly.
the author.
But without the
That
player,
negates what he
But without
says.
without the player, you would get no narrative.
That's not
So
my argument.
gameplay has to be the most
My
important.
argument from the last time we had a conversation like this, my argument is game. I've always agreed with you. Gameplay has to be there to be a game. That's never been.
But it has
an
to be the
argument.
most important.
It doesn't have to make up the most of it. It does not.
No, it doesn't have to make up the most of it. It has to be the most important.
No, it doesn't.
Because
are
without gameplay, you wouldn't have your
games
narrative.
are as subjective as art. People play them for various reasons. People are inspired from them for various reasons. From that inspiration, they will go and make games for various different reasons. There is no across-the-board answer for this. Games are as subjective as anything else.
We're getting a call here on the Boomzies phone. Hello! Who are we talking to on the Boomzies phone?
Hey everyone, hey Boomzies, this is Green Wolf here.
Hey, Green Wolf, how you doing, good sir? Long time no chat.
Yeah, I've been kind of feeling pretty bad this last few weeks, not getting much
You
better.
feeling
but-
better?
Yeah, a little bit.
Has the Boomzies medicine making you feel better?
Yeah, except the poor shaman jokes, but other than that, fine.
Well, what do you have to say on this?
Landon, very nice job being a true gangster. Very nice.
Yeah, yeah. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
I'm very white.
he is.
Well, aren't we all inside?
I can attest because I'm very white, so he is definitely white if we're both white.
Yeah. I have to admit, guys, I've been listening to you guys argue and debacle about this, and I have to admit, I kind of am favoring Landon's side just because you both guys are cinema nerds, right? As well as video game nerds, right?
Oh yeah, I
would
love
consider
movies
myself,
too. Yeah, yeah.
And would you agree that you would think story is more important in a movie than graphics and sound?
Not always.
Not always.
I would say
but-
the story and I would say story is one of the more important elements in a movie.
Yeah, and do they make a movie before they write the script and before they write the story? They don't. They work on all those attributes before they even put this movie into production.
Well, sometimes they come up with a concept or just an idea of maybe a character or a setting, possibly, that maybe it's not so much a written out story, but maybe that setting gives them an idea to go, yeah, I'd love to do a whole story about this.
Yeah. It's and I'm just going for my DVD collection and my VCR tapes, and I go, well, most of my favorite movies, I know they cared more about the story than the visual appeal of when they were creating the story. I've got The Godfather, Back to the Future, Star Wars, and Indiana Jones here. It's those are films that they dedicated to the story. Sure, they had very nice visual appeal, but
And great
what would
acting.
they- What?
And I said, and great acting.
Yeah. And So we know that these films are going to be good, and in video games, it's perfectly fine to have great gameplay and great narrative, but more iconically, are you going to play a game that's going to take you hours upon hours to play if you've got no reason to play it? And sure, like games in the old days, you could have gotten away with that because, you know, story wasn't totally crucial yet.
But the motivation was the gameplay. The motivation was the mechanics and the interactivity. There was no, it wasn't bogged down by a story or cheapened.
Games aren't bogged down by story, though, in all cases.
Don't kill each other.
I feel that story should be in the service of the gameplay, not gameplay in the service of the story.
Gameplay can easily be in service of the story.
I don't think it should be that way. I think it's a wrong way of
I think a
thinking
lot
about
of people will sit down. I think this is kind of what he's saying. I think a lot of people will sit down, and when they're trying to create a game, they're going to figure out why they're making the game. What's the reason for this? What's the end message that we're wanting to create? It's just like writing a book, writing a story.
Well, who cares if it's not fun?
See, this is where you always boil it down to what's good and what's bad.
But that's the point. If it doesn't play well, what's the point of making this wonderful story?
That's a game that you don't like.
Because it has bad gameplay, so I don't
Clearly,
like it.
a lot of people like Deadly Premonition with its bad gameplay. There's a lot of games that people like that would, in your opinion, be bad.
And a lot of people like Backstreet Boys.
That is why video games, just like music, just like
Backstreet
books,
Boys.
film, it's always subjective to who likes it.
But it's different in the realm of video games because it's interactive. The interactivity.
But that doesn't change the
interactivity.
subjectivity of it. It doesn't change the
interactivity.
subjectivity.
No, the interactivity is what makes it a video game.
Sure, but it doesn't change the subjectivity of why people like them.
Oh, if you like it for the story, that's fine. If you prefer a video
And
game
because
for a
I like,
story-
if I were to go in and become a game developer, I would do it because when I play games, I'm inspired by the story, so then I'm going to go out and I'm going to look at it that way. And that's the way I think a lot of people are. A lot of people like you, they'll be inspired by the gameplay. They'll be inspired by Contra and say, man, fuck, Contra is awesome, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to make
Thank
games
goodness.
because of gameplay. It's just different. That's why there needs to be a diversity. There needs to be, we need to broaden gameplays. Instead of building barriers, make games about anything. Whatever you want to do, see what sticks. That's the only way that you get innovation. If you funnel yourself and you look at it strictly in this tiny tunnel vision thing,
It's not tiny.
You grow nothing. You don't grow.
Well, we should let you get off the phone because we have now. It was a threesome, but then it became a twosome, and we don't want to leave you out. If you have anything else to say,
Yeah. Do you guys remember AC1?
Say that one more time.
Do you guys remember
AC1?
Assassin's Creed 1?
Assassin's Creed 1?
yes.
Who remembers the gameplay from that? It was the same thing over and over again, but why did we finish it? Why did we play all the way
Great
through
story.
it?
I was so enthralled with the character.
I was so bored when I played that game, and like just to having to replay it again because I wanted to make sure I got the story for Revelations now. I was just so bored. It's like, why am I doing this? Like, I played all the other Assassin's Creed games, and the fact that they varied up the gameplay as the games got better just made things a lot easier to go through. But when we were stuck with AC1 and had nothing to do except the same 4 or 5 missions, gameplay was unimportant. You only stuck forward for the story.
See, I would say that's a bad thing. That's a terrible reason to play a game.
See, the thing is, when they were building Assassin's Creed, they weren't building it to build a bad game. In their mind, they thought this was going to be a good game.
But it's bad. It doesn't. Again, the reasonings they didn't mean.
There's
to build
always
it
going to
bad.
be bad games.
They didn't mean to build. You use the excuse of they didn't mean to build it bad, so it's okay.
Yeah, the first time it was good. It wasn't bad at the time.
See, and
it's just,
you bring up.
It's grown as
but
we
there's
see
plenty.
As we've seen other games in the franchise, they've gotten better.
Well, see, and that's where I would kind of disagree with you there. I think with Brotherhood and Revelations, they've only pretty much it's like Assassin's Creed 2.5, Assassin's Creed 2.75. You know, we've made a small bit of improvements, but there is a good example, and I was talking with my friend Sean about this. You remember Da Vinci, right? In the later Assassin's Creed games. And remember when you got into the tank? You literally got into the tank and you were playing Battlezone, right? That was a case in where the story and the narrative had a setting that you were supposed to believe. And yet you're in a freaking tank. You're in a tank playing Battlezone in, ancient times. So there's a case of where the story actually detrimented the gameplay because it got in the way of what could have been a fun gameplay, but it was ruined by the story because it didn't make sense. It made no sense at all.
That can happen, and there can be shitty gameplay. Like, it's going to happen. There's going
No,
to be
what
bad
I'm saying
games
is
for
the
different
gameplay
reasons.
didn't match up with the story. But because they had to have the story about Da Vinci and Ezio interacting with each other, they had to make up this crap. When instead, they could have just focused on the gameplay, made this fun take minigame, and then figured out how it works later on.
No, but there's got to be a reason why you're doing
No, there
things.
doesn't have to be a reason.
That's why I play fucking games. That's why a lot of people play games. People play games for different reasons, man.
Well, that's the exact case I make. If there's a reason why he's with Da Vinci and he makes these huge tank devices, then it doesn't make sense for the story. It breaks the story. So you got to have either one. Either you have the tanks or you have the story. But in that case, you can't have both because it doesn't make sense, in my opinion.
Well, as far as I know, I don't play a lot of my strategy games on my computer for any story or anything, because a lot of them don't even have it. Like
Exactly.
But
No one plays
played
StarCraft 2 for the story, certainly.
I'm not saying everybody plays games for story.
I
I'm
don't
saying
know.
there are those games that people will.
Well, StarCraft does have a story, but I'm talking like a lot of the old, like, Total War games. They don't have a story that really matters, so you just play them because they're fun, and you like to think. But then you play a game that does have a story and a purpose, and you go, well, this is better for that reason. Because I like having a purpose behind what I'm doing. I don't think having no reason to just go kill somebody
Well,
is
what's
good
wrong
enough.
with that? What's wrong with playing Contra, playing Pac-Man?
There's nothing wrong with it, but there's plenty of reasons to do other things too.
Yeah.
But
That's why
I
all
have
these
no-
games can coexist. That's what I've been trying to say this entire time.
Well,
There
I have
is
no problem
right
with
or
games
wrong.
with story. There's no problem. I already said I love Metal Gear, I love Mass Effect. But the problem is we're too focused on story these days. And that's my real issue.
Not every game is focused on story.
We're too focused on people valuing a game's story over the gameplay, which I feel is the wrong point of view.
Well,
I think
if we're looking
everything
at-
can coexist.
Well, if we're looking at a bad case of story making to gameplay, we're definitely looking at the CODs, because they have no story, or except the story that we heard the last three
Yeah,
games.
it's the same. Somebody attacked us, blow them up. That's the next game. Yeah, it's the Russians. I don't know. It's Belgium. Let's blow Belgium up. I don't know. Why not? Well, thank you, sir, for...
Dealing with us and sticking through.
He's like a psychiatrist.
He is.
He is.
Well,
But-
I've looked into psychiatry because most of my friends are crazy.
Well, good. You've got a few more crazy ones.
Yep. Don't kill yourselves in the process.
We won't.
of this
We'll be alright.
We
show.
promise.
Yeah, we've had this argument
Yeah,
before.
we've got it.
Pretty
This is
much.
an old hat. All right, man. See you later.
Good night.
All right. So let's go ahead and pull up. I've got one last quote. Might as well.
Might as
Henry
well.
Jenkins. I can't really remember what it was. You'll have to read it because it doesn't pull
He
up
says,
over here.
the discussion operates with too narrow a model of narrative. One preoccupied with the rules and conventions of classical linear storytelling at the expenses of consideration of other kinds of narratives. Not only the modernist and postmodernist experimentation that inspired the hypertext theories, but also popular traditions which emphasize spatial exploration over casual event chains, or which seek to balance between the competing demands of narrative and spectacle.
Yes. Essentially, in a nutshell, what he is saying is
That's a
that
mouthful.
a lot of what ludosity or what is it called again?
Yeah, ludosity.
Okay, so I
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
sorry.
you got it.
What ludosity focuses on is a very narrow point of view of what narrative is, and does not look at the wide-branching versions of how narrative can be used. Narrative can be used silently. Narrative can be used through the player. Narrative can be used directly through the narrator. Narrative can be used 100% as a narrator of, say, Bastion, where you actually have a narrator through the entire thing. There's so many different ways that you can use narrative, and what he says is that it's when they try to attack it, they use too narrow of a viewpoint on it. But there's plenty of issues with people that narratology. There's plenty of issues with that as well. In my opinion, because I'm trying to wrap this up because we've gone for quite a while. In my opinion, honestly, I think both of them are right for a lot of reasons. I fully 100% agree with ludosity in a lot of cases. Just being honest, I do. But I do think that it's too narrow. I think it just focuses too much on certain things, and it needs to be wider, it needs to be broader, and I think there's a lot of good things that come out of Narratology. And I think there just needs to be a merger between these two, because in my opinion, games are as subjective as anything else. People like them for different reasons, people are inspired by them for different reasons, and people will make games for different reasons. And there's going to be good games and there's going to be bad games, and just try and, if you want to emphasize on narrative, just make as good of a gameplay as possible, make them merge together. If you're going to make if you're out to make a great gameplay experience and you want to have that story in there, make them marry together so well. Just do as best as you can and create a good gaming experience for everybody else. Honestly, I think both things can coexist. I don't think they're as much oil and water as you say. So that's honestly my take.
Well, I'll end with a quote. I'll end with a quote that I have here. And it's Greg Koskoskian. I like how he put this. He says, "Play is how we learn. Stories are how we integrate what we've learned and how we teach other the things we've learned ourselves through play. But play comes first." And in the strictest form, I do believe that. I do agree with you that, especially in games like RPGs, Western and Japanese RPGs, there is a focus on the story, and that's important. And I would say I wouldn't like Metal Gear or Mass Effect as much had it not had a great story. But I would have absolutely hated it if it had terrible gameplay. And I think there's a difference of degrees for me in how I judge and grade gameplay. So for me, great story to the detriment of gameplay is not what I want to see. Maybe I'm a little bit pragmatic about how I feel. Would it be bad if we didn't have story in games? Sure. But I think if we did go more in a route of focusing on gameplay, even though we might leave some stories behind, I feel we would be improving, let's just say, enriching video games, and then we could bring story back in after we as a development group of gamers worked on our mechanics. And if we could work on mechanics and then bring story in after that, or learn how to bring it in first and then your gameplay, I think we're gonna be come on! If we just over 9,000, it will be just fine. So,
well, I do want to add. Sorry, this kind of came into my mind.
We're gonna
one last little thing though. What I will also say is that when you're thinking of video games, and if you do become a video game developer or designer, if you become in that field, in my mind, I do not want to build any barriers. I do not want to be like, okay, we need to focus on this right away because that's what we're supposed to do. You know, I think if you build barriers, you can lose some of the creativity, you can lose some of the innovation that is possible, and have an open mind. Like I said, be influenced by whatever it is you want. But I just kind of thought, you know, if you're too narrow on things, you could potentially be building barriers and lose the innovation that would just push the industry and keep pushing it. But anyways, so that's kind of my two thoughts.
Yeah.
We have. I'm kind of tired. I'm kind of exhausted after all of this. We have some really cool stuff that's coming up later on. Next week, we've got a very special...
We do have a very special guest. Next week, we have featured guest Norm Caruso, also known as the Gaming Historian, which I know a lot of you guys know. We're excited to have him on. He's a personal friend of the show's. Glad to have him here. He's going to be on next week. We're going to have a special topic with him. We're not going to talk to you all about it here, but we'll have a special topic. We'll have him on as a guest, and you guys can, of course, ask your questions in chat. And who knows? It'll be a nice little threesome.
Something.
So you guys want to be there next week, February 4th at 10 p.m. Norm, the Gaming Historian, will be here for an interview. And that is something we are working on, is having more people on, more notable people in the gaming geek world on our show for interviews and debates with us to kind of be involved every now and again. So you'll be seeing much more of that.
I think it'll only improve now that we're, like we said at the beginning of the show, we're part of Machinima, so I think that's just going to keep improving. We're going to be doing some cool stuff.
I agree, 120%. So, anyway,
we are not just Boomzies.
Exactly.
If you guys kind of like what you've got here, we continuously bicker all the time. We've got our own website. We are substance-tv.com. Go check us out. We post videos and articles all the time about various things in the geek culture.
In the geek culture, yep, yep. Same thing we do here. We just do it in a different way. So make sure you check us out there. And, of course, make sure you check us out next week, like we said, Norm, for a very wonderful special edition of Boomzies. So,
and check us out on Facebook, We're on Facebook. Just search Substance TV. We're always on there. This bickering continues.
It does.
All the time. So follow us on there. Like us. It's fun. So we're also on Twitter.
We are at Substance TV. Very simple. Very simple. So anyway, for Brian
and Landon,
who are at peace with one another, no blood was shed. Congratulations. Right now, at least. We'll see you next week at 10 p.m. Central for another edition of Boomies.
Thanks, everybody.